Ball picks are very smooth for raking across pins and are especially useful for dealing with flat wafers. The double-sided picks are useful for double-sided locks, such as the double-sided wafer lock. We'll talk more about those later. Rakes of different shapes and sizes are often useful. Different tools work better for different locks. Lots of random household objects can be used. Use your imagination. The torque wrench is one of the most important tools. It is used not only to turn the plug, but also it is used to help you feel what is going on inside the lock. The smaller end is inserted into the keyhole, and you use the longer end to rotate the plug. Make sure you leave enough room in the keyway to insert your second tool. Keep in mind, even if you watch this movie and fully understand all of the concepts, you will still not necessarily be good at picking locks. There is no substitute for practice. Get yourself a variety of locks in which to practice. In order to successfully pick the pin tumbler lock, all you really need is a torque wrench and a hook pick. There are many methods you can use. We'll cover a few, plus some automatic tools. The torque wrench is inserted into the keyway and used to rotate the plug. Apply a continuous light turning pressure. The pick is used to manipulate the pins. Keep a slight turning pressure with your wrench while doing this. Raking is one of the easiest methods to learn, although it can be difficult to fully master. To rake successfully, you need to have just the right touch. This is something that can only be learned through practice. Raking is one of the fastest hand methods when it works. First, place a torque wrench in the keyway, leaving plenty of room to access the pins. Now, apply a gentle amount of turning force in the correct direction. It is very important to apply the appropriate amount of force. Usually beginners tend to push too hard. Often just a light touch is needed. The idea is to simply take a raking pick and repetitively pull it across all the pins in such a fashion as to push the pins upward and unlock the pin tumbler. Make sure you apply a continuous gentle force to all of the pins as you rake them. Don't skip any. While this may sound too simple at first, it can work well if done properly. Your first pass will most likely not be successful. You must make many passes. With each pass of the pick, slightly increase the turning force on the torque wrench. As frustration sets in, people have a tendency to apply too much force. This won't work, it only leads to more frustration. Different rakes and styles of raking work better for different styles of locks. Experience and practice will show you which ones work best. Some require quick, light movements, while others take slow, stronger passes. Remember to use a variety of practice locks to get comfortable with various techniques. Another method you can use is to set each pin individually. You have to understand more about the inner workings of the lock, but the knowledge will help you greatly. As always, your goal is to clear the shear line of any obstructing pins so the plug may rotate. If locks were perfectly manufactured, it would be impossible to pick individual pins. But in the real world, locks have many imperfections and are built to affordable tolerances. The better the tolerances, the better the lock, the more it will cost. Metal pieces have to slide and rotate by each other, so there must be small gaps to make this motion possible. The first aspect we are going to look at is called binding. This occurs when the plug tries to rotate and crimps a pin against the hull, holding it in place. When this happens, you will no longer be able to rotate the plug, since the pin is being held in the way. The holes drilled in real locks will not line up in an exact line. Because of this, when you rotate the plug, one of the pins will bind first, while the others are left loose. Since each lock is different, each lock's pins will bind in a different order. If you rotate the plug in the other direction, the pins will bind in the opposite order. First, use your pick to determine which pin is binding the most. Then push up on that pin until the top pin is completely inside the hull. The top pin that used to be crimped between the hull and the plug is now no longer in the way. So the plug will rotate slightly until it crimps another pin stack. You should be able to hear or feel this slight movement with your torque wrench. The top pin is now trapped and will rest on the top of the plug while the bottom pin is free to fall downward. This is called setting the pin. You are now ready to move on to the next pin column that is now binding. When you are pushing up on the pins, be careful to stop at just the right point when they set. If you push too far, the bottom pin will continue and move into the hull as well. The plug and hull will now bind the bottom pin, which will keep you from rotating the plug. You can tell if this happens when you remove your pick and the bottom pin neither springs down nor free falls down. Simply reduce the pressure on your torque wrench until the pin falls down. Several other pins you had previously set may also fall when doing this, so be careful. You can also try picking the pins in a different order to make things easier. Now it's your turn to start picking pin tumblers. First, insert a torque wrench into the keyway. Apply a gentle turning pressure with the turning tool. Again, the word gentle is emphasized. If too many pins bind, they will jam too tightly. If the pins that do bind are too difficult to push up, then you are turning too hard. When you become frustrated and tired, you will likely start turning harder. When this happens, take a break and recover. Well-machined locks and those made to tighter tolerances will require the use of more torque. Padlocks and some doorknobs also have to turn a spring-loaded locking bolt, so these require more torque. Experience will tell you how much torque to apply. When you pick padlocks, there is the additional skill of holding the lock in the same hand that you use to turn the wrench. With practice, you will learn which method suits you best. Try a variety of methods. Remember, this isn't always an exact science. While you are applying this gentle turning pressure, use the pick to feel the pins. Don't use your sight, just feel them. By knowing how they respond in various situations, you can create an internal map in your mind of what the lock looks like and the state of all the pins. Remember to visualize. This is a critical skill to learn. Just as many athletes try to visualize before a game what they will have to perform, so should you visualize yourself how you will pick the lock. Next, attempt to determine which pin is binding the most. Then, position your pick directly under it and use the tip of your pick to make contact with the bottom of the pin. Apply a small amount of force, pushing the pin upward in your attempt to push the top pin completely into the upper chamber of the lock. Be certain not to disturb the neighboring pins too much during this process. There are a variety of hook pick sizes that are better for different